put together these Friday morning men's lectures, which are open to both men and women alike. I've had a lot of women come up to me and say, "Are we allowed in?" Yeah, of course they are. We have no board, no agenda, no meetings, and whatever money we receive from your goodwill offerings goes directly into our account to support our vacation condo in the south of France. So that's a good example of unanticipated endings, okay? Actually, whatever money we receive, we turn over to the Methodist House for graciously letting us use their facility. Bob and Karen Dowds, who are the camp counselors here, let's give them a round of applause, and Methodist House. Our guest today is Mark Russell. He needs no introduction, so let's jump right into it. He's illustrious 60-plus year, would that be correct? 60-plus year
I'm
career.
older than that.
I know that.
Yeah.
You didn't start in utero, I don't
Yes.
think. Right, okay, good. Has made him an icon of the political comedy world. Mark and his wife Allie own a house just outside the gates. It's actually the guard house. They live there. And Mark has been a frequent performer at the AMP stage, as most of you know. His long-running PBS network show, recorded at WNED in Buffalo, ran from 1975 to 2005, which has got to be some kind of a record for a
Yeah, it
comedy.
is. It is. The owner had a record. I mean,
Yeah, right. Well, that's Buffalo, I guess. Mark actually hails from Buffalo, right? I mean,
yes,
you
I
were,
do.
you were born
I
there.
was born there. I died there a couple times.
Yeah, right. And give us just a brief snapshot of your travels as a young kid when you were growing up in Buffalo.
Yeah, well, the travels are still going on. I'm on a national tour of Methodist houses.
Right.
But you're basically asking me how I got my start.
Yeah. No, I mean, just, you lived in Jamestown for a while, did you
Oh,
not?
no, Jamestown. I was 10 then, and the city. Oh, has it changed? No.
Yeah, right.
But how I got my start? My parents were dating, and no, I worked a series of subterranean toilets a long time before I ever started.
Mike, we can't hear him well in the back.
All right, you can. All right, can you hear us now? You folks in the amphitheater, you're listening to heresy.
Can you turn,
How about that? Is that any better?
can you turn that up, Bob?
What? They can't hear on the porch.
It's too loud, he said in the porch.
It's too loud on the porch.
It says no. They have a chorus of no's out there. Okay. Good. We used to say in old-time radio, later that same afternoon, anyway,
Well, I'll
continue.
just go and
Here, you want to try this?
do that. And all right, here we are now. Okay. So anyway, I worked some real dumps, toilets, and there were no comedy clubs then. And so if you're just starting out, you might get a chance to play a strip joint, a strip club with exotic dancers. And that's what I did. A place called the Maryland Club, which was on the 1500 block of L Street in Washington, D.C. The reason I mentioned that, the club was torn down, the strip joint was torn down. Today, on that spot is the national headquarters of the American Medical Association. And so to this day, that site is devoted to the human anatomy.
Right.
And so a guy came in and I don't know what I was even talking about then, but I just told some jokes and things. And anyway, this led to a job on Capitol Hill at a little hotel bar, a smoke-filled political bar, skullduggery, senators, congressmen, lobbyists. Lobbyists were the ones who picked up the check. And back in the corner was a young guy, a staffer, and he did a lot of his work in the corner there, drinking a 45-cent beer, and he's got a stack of papers and all of that, and that was Bobby Kennedy, and then he would write a check for the 45-cent beer that he had nursed for 2 hours. And we learned later the Kennedys never had any money on them. They never had any cash, and so he was a staffer for what had been the Joe McCarthy committee. Now it's funny when I talk about that, when I reminisce like that on stage, I would get into these generational problems. and I would talk about Bush and Cheney to appear before the 9/11 Commission, and they insisted they appeared before the committee together for the same reason that Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy appeared together. And so then I would find a young person in the front row, and I'd say, Edgar Bergen was a ventriloquist. Oh. And Charlie McCarthy was the infamous senator from Wisconsin. Then I would lose him. So I stayed at that little bar there for 3 years, and then the owner of the Shoreham Hotel, which at the time was the biggest hotel in town, and I went to the lounge over there, and I stayed there for 20 years, and during that time, Mike Collins from WNED in Buffalo, the PBS station, came down, and this was during Watergate, and they pitched the idea for a pilot. For the pilot, we went to Buffalo, did the pilot, and it took a year to get it shopped around the various member stations, and the show ran for 30 years, and so that's been a nice time.
Let's talk about the format of the show and how you prepared for that. It was done live in the studio, right? And you had to do it to time, did you not? Or did you just record it and they edited it later?
No, we didn't record it.
Had to be did to time.
They heard the clinkers on the piano at home.
Yeah.
And so that the time, we have a clock and it run backwards, and then we got to about 5 minutes. But it took years to figure out to do the time. Sometimes I'd run short, I'd run over, and it was very amateurish. And if something in the news broke late that day, which happened once in a while, where 14 guys would get fired. I mean, I thought there was Scaramucci the other night.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what are the Capital Steps going to do? They got to have a Scaramucci routine.
Right.
And Scaramucci is kicked out about 4 in the afternoon. So as you know, they kept the song. It was their opening song, and it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody cared. I mean, I've done songs about people who were fired 15 years ago.
Right.
And then you'd write a song about what happened that day, and not trusting to memory, would literally duct tape the lyrics of the song on the bottom of the camera lens, and so it was that dicey.
Mm-hmm. While we're on this topic, in 1990, you did a classic thing on Nicolae Ceausescu to the tune of Chattanooga
Chattanooga
Choo Choo.
Choo Choo.
Can you do that? Can you do that?
Well, there's a gentleman here, and he's very well known, and he's Romanian. And I was sitting next to him when Tom Becker was president on the porch, and he introduced himself, and he said, I saw his name on his little placemat there, and it ended with like IEU. I said, "You're Romanian." He said, "How'd you know that?" And I said, "Well, I know that Romanian have an ending like Ceausescu, the dictator. And matter of fact, I wrote a song about Ceausescu." And he looks at me kind of funny, and the other people, Becker looks at me kind of funny, and it was to the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Now, Ceausescu and his wife had been shot by a firing squad. The members were also on the jury, and so, "Pardon me, boys, are you the cats who shot Ceausescu? You made my day, the way you blew them away. Here on the train are the remains of old Ceausescu. They don't make a sound, and yet they still get around. You leave the Transylvania station, have a drink at the bar. Ceausescu and his wife are resting in the next car. Lunch in Bratislava, boy, they're gonna love you. When they're throwing fried eggs in Yugoslavia. See McDonald's arches where there was a red star, then you know that Bucharest is not very far. Shovel all the colon and gotta keep it rolling. Woo, 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 Ceausescu, there you are. Yeah. Now, so a few weeks later, I run into Tom Becker. He said, "I meant to tell you, the gentleman and his wife were prisoners of Ceausescu for 5 years." No. Yep, I didn't know that.
Now, I guess you chose that tune because of Ceausescu sounding like Choo Choo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes the songs don't match. It's just the way it works out.
Again, while we're on this topic, in 95, you and other people who did parodies of tunes actually were part of a Supreme Court case. Tell us about that.
This was Two Live Crew versus the Roy Orbison estate. Roy Orbison had a song called Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman, right.
And Two Live Crew wrote a disgusting, sexist song about, to the tune of Two Live Crew. So Mr. Orbison has passed away. The estate sued him, and the Orbison people won in the appellate court, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. And 9-0, including Rehnquist, including Scalia, voted for Two Live Crew. You're always on the side of the sleaze. Now, the case where I was indirectly involved in, this was Hustler magazine, Larry Flint. Larry Flint had a cartoon in there, which if I were to describe the cartoon in this particular venue,
Right.
the ceiling would crash in.
Right.
It was awful. It was Jerry Falwell having sex with his mother and a goat in an outhouse.
Oh.
Stand by. And so this was about a situation about parody. Cartoons are parody. And so a lot of us were nervous. The cartoonists were nervous. And we have a friend of the court, amicus curiae, secolorum, whatever it is,
Right.
and to write to the Supreme Court. Again, 9-0, Scalia, Rehnquist, in
Right.
favor of Flint. Now, can you imagine Ruth Bader Ginsburg giving high fives to Two Live Crew on the way out of there? So you're always on the side of the sleaze. It's First Amendment, and we are pretty scummy people.
Now you were you played piano. You played piano. So does your brother. By the way, Danny
Yes.
Ruskin, who's Mark's brother, works in Washington D.C. If you ever the Prime Rib, I think he does
In
it.
the Prime Rib, it's
lunchtime?
a lobbyist hangout right there in Case. He
Yes.
was at the Mayflower for about 20
Yes,
years.
he was. Yeah, and a very entertaining guy in his own right. And your real name was Russ Lander.
Russ Lander. It's a Russian name. There's a Russian first name, Ruslan. So Russ Lander would be like Robertson, Williamson, and that was it. My grandfather was Jewish. He married an Irish Catholic. I was raised Catholic. And when I talk about this, the family was from the northeastern corner of what is now Poland, but it was Russia then. And so at the end of World War I, Poland, which had been partitioned out of existence, existed again. And so without even moving, they were no longer in Russia, they were in Poland. So one of my forebears runs into the house, Papa, guess what? We're no longer in Russia, we are in Poland. And the old man said, thank God those winters were killing me.
Yeah,
That's the one the rabbi left out yesterday. I was waiting for that.
right. So did you have formal lessons on piano? Was your friend?
Formal, what do you mean by formal?
Well, I mean like a teacher.
No, I took classical lessons, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And remember Jack Benny's violin teacher,
Yes.
Mel Blanc?
Yes.
Michel Benny. And could we try it once again, Mr. Benny? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like a bird you are not chirping, you sound like a horse that's burping. 1 and 2. Yeah, so I didn't like that. So then I took popular music, sheet music, lead sheets,
Right.
where the left hand notes were not written down, but the chords. Tell me about chords. I know 3 of them already. And so Irv Shire, whose son David Shire later wrote for the movies. He wrote the Rocky score. He wrote the score for All the President's Men. And he was just a little kid, David, he coming home from school during my lesson. And so Irving Shire, he was a society band leader in Buffalo and very renowned. And so I took, my brother only took 1 year from a nun in Kenmore. And I had like 7 or 8 years, and he plays Rings Around Me.
You were, but your family was not musical. I mean, you just did.
No,
this,
they were
right?
supportive, though.
Yeah.
Very supportive. We're talking taking the kids to nightclubs on a school night. Which is why it took me 7 years to get out of Canisius High School.
Right. Now you went to. There's discrepancy between whether you went to Fredonia or whether you went to GW, George Washington University.
I went to both. No, I didn't go to Fredonia. I went down there and took the test on timpani. I was in the orchestra at Canisius playing the piano, and then a genius, a prodigy named Sebastian Fasanello was on the piano, and so I went on the kettle drum. And so a graduation night, the orchestra's down here, and we go up to get our diploma. And while I went up to get my diploma, these smart guys unscrewed the drum head, and so the drum head, the head was flapping like a sail, you know.
Yeah.
And so I got my diploma, I sat down, and so we end the ceremony with Star Spangled Banner. And so the timpani doesn't come in until the end. Oh, say does this, and I said, brrr, and the mallet goes right through. So I had an audition on the timpani.
Yes. You get to the Marquee Lounge, and I think your act this is in the Shoreham Hotel. Show began like at 10 o'clock, didn't it? I mean, it was late.
10:30.
10:30.
I'm in bed by then now,
Yeah,
but
right.
they had a big room, a big Vegas-style room with big name acts, and that cost an arm and a leg to get in there. And so the hotel wanted the cab fare, any change they had left,
Right.
and so they would come in, and they were relatively short sets, maybe 40 minutes. So I did a 10:30, and then I don't know, 11:30, and then 1 o'clock. I repeated the first show because if they were still in there, they were so smashed.
So blotto. Yeah.
They didn't care.
Now, did you do political humor from the very beginning? Now, you said earlier that you were in these dives that you worked in. You can't even remember the material you used, at that time.
Yeah,
when did you make that?
Well, at the Carroll Arms, I just started in there with my, Bill Murray hadn't coined that sleazy lounge act routine of his.
Yeah.
That made me a little uncomfortable when I first saw it. I said, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
And I came in there like that, and I would get them sing-alongs, group sing-alongs at 6 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And you think Congress is a mess now. I mean, people say, oh, it was great old days. No, everybody was drunk. Well, we had a better government when everybody was drunk, I think. So a congressman came up to me and said, listen, he said, if you want us to pay attention to you, talk about us. And I said, what do you mean? That's so naive. He said, well, we have these things across the street in the Senate office building called hearings. Oh, really?
Yeah, right.
And so I went over there in the Senate caucus room, the big room you see on TV with the chandeliers and all. No security was required. You just walk in, and they were investigating the Teamsters Union. That was the first thing. And then they would break at the end, leave, cross the street for drinks, and there's the senators on one side and the Teamsters on the other side, staring each other down. It was very exciting, very exciting.
So, but you started then to see that this was fertile territory because you were right in their wheelhouse, right? I mean, the political stuff is what I mean.
Yeah.
And then you used to, if a congressman or senator came in, didn't you not skewer them a little bit? I mean, right in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, when one of the Kennedys would come downstairs, this was about the time that Joseph Kennedy, the father, said, I don't mind financing your campaign, but I'll be damned if I pay for a landslide right around then. and so when I'd come down and I'd start it, swing low, Jack Kennedy, your daddy's gonna carry you home. Now that was funny then. I mean, but it's nice singing Sweet Chariot in the Methodist house. I'd blend in.
Let me get back to you then, when you dropped out of college, went into the Marine Corps.
That's right. You got a problem with
Now,
that?
were you in a trench? Semper Fi, Semper Fi. Right. So what did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was a clerk typist.
Did you learn that at Camp Lejeune? Or?
I did a lot of I played the piano, by the way. I had a little act in the enlisted clubs, and I was at boot camp, Paris Island. And Mark Shields and I took a tour of, he was also a Marine, and we went to Paris about 2 months ago. It was hilarious, and they treated us like boots. You recruits are here, and we're standing there.
You're right.
So I was a cook in the mess hall in Hawaii, and I was making bread pudding and a great big thing like that. And the kid came in and says, "Is that for the officers?" I said, "Yeah," and he spit in the bread pudding. And I was a dog catcher in Atsugi Naval Air Station in Japan. And any military base, there's always a lot of stray dogs walking around. They hang around the mess hall and all that, and eat the food. And a child was bit, and he didn't know rabies and all that. Where the nearest veterinarian was at an army base, Camp Zama, whatever. And so a buddy of mine, we talked the CO into letting us be dog catchers, and we were given a military police armband. And we had big nets, and we would to look visible, to appear visible, busy. We would chase the dogs during chow time around the mess hall, and then we never caught a dog. We never. and you ain't no friend of mine.
Right.
So the rest of the time, this guy had a house. This guy was married to a Japanese woman. He had a house. So we would go after the chow, with our nets. We'd get in the Jeep and go to his house. We'd drink all day, and then we'd come back for dinner and chase the dogs again. Finally, they realized that we never caught a dog. But I did this thing in the show where the other guy, by the way, was a drummer, Zelinsky from Brooklyn, and we were in the enlisted club. And I was doing some songs that I had, a little risque, dirty, filthy, smutty songs that I had originally learned on the playground of St. Paul's Elementary School. And so we were blown out of the water when a very sanctimonious sailor, he was a chaplain's assistant, and he wrote a scathing article in the base newspaper about the filth and the smut by these Marines and the enlisted club. And we were called before the commanding officer of the entire Naval Air Station, an admiral. And Zelensky and I are standing at attention, and we are in big trouble. And the admiral, and we're at attention there, and the admiral's got the article in front of him. And he says, "What's this all about?" And with that, Zelensky breaks attention, reaches over and grabs 2 pencils off the admiral's desk, starts beating out a rhythm and says, "Hit it, Russ!" On the beach in Waikiki, there's a gal you want to see. She's got plenty of just what it takes. Each Kanaka native boy throws away his fish and poi every time the sweet Leilani shakes. Now those Kanaka beach boys may be rough, but that's the way she likes her men. She likes them big and tough. She's got the biggest Kanakas in Hawaii. Admiral says, "Get the hell out of here."
Let's move to another topic.
And not a minute too soon.
Not a minute too soon. I have a Methodist minister in the crowd who said that he gave a blessing
Pardon?
He gave a blessing
Yes.
to this room because he expected that there would be some blasphemous things said in here.
Thank goodness he did that.
Yes, he did. So, thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. You've been here for the whole week.
Yes.
What's your observations about the comedy week?
Comedy week, I laughed, I cried. There wasn't a dry seat in the house. And I think they ought to put up a sign backstage at the amphitheater, put up a big sign, there will be no profane language in this amphitheater unless you are Louis Black. Now, Louis Black uses it with, I mean, it's a weapon.
Yeah.
And there's a way to use it, in my opinion, where it works. It's so natural to him. And by the way, we spent some time together the next day. He's exactly the guy off stage as he is on stage. And so you use it gracefully. The problem is, I think, that young comedians just starting out might feel that it is required, obligatory, to use that language. And there's nothing more pathetic than a guy starting out where it is contrived. And with Louis Black, it ain't contrived. That's the way I feel. I've always been bothered by these guys because I thought, boy, how easy it is. That's an automatic laugh. Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Words with K in them.
Yeah.
Whereas, it took a little more trouble. You look at an old 30s movie, James Cagney, there's no profanity, but it gets across.
Yeah.
When it's Cagney.
Yeah.
When it's Bogart, you dirty, rotten, lily-livered, and wow, you were scared a little bit in 1940 too. But it's been a delightful week. I mean, it really is. I mean, the only thing, maybe next year you get into the more of humorists. I mean, I never, as far back as they got this week, they didn't get any farther back than the 60s. They're icons, rightly so, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Lenny Bruce. Fine. Mine are Mark Twain, Will Rogers, Art Buchwald, Mort Saul, Tom Lehrer. You could do another week on those guys.
Somebody sent me an email last week, totally unrelated to this topic here, and said there were myriad Jewish comedians that played the Borscht Belt, they played on television, Shecky Green, Red Buttons, Toady Fields, Joey Bishop, Milton Berle, Jan Murray, and on and on and on, Myron Cohen, Mel Brooks, Alan King. None of them used profane language. And yet we're the funniest people on the planet. You know, do you agree with that? I mean, with these people?
Yeah, but they were all pre this.
Yes.
They couldn't. They might have wanted to.
But you know,
Burl, by the way, was very profane off stage in his normal way
yes.
of talking.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that they don't use locker room language off, but it was not, it was kind of de rigueur to use it on stage. And they insinuated a lot. I mean, you knew what they were talking about, but they just didn't, in your face gratuitously is what I find most of these guys do.
Yeah. But you could make a list of Gentile comedians too, just as long. But I mean,
No. I just happen to. These happen to be most of my favorites, personally. Yeah. But okay, there are certain situations that you are in. I mean, for example, even though you do political satire, it would be different if you did it here as opposed to, let's say, a banquet or a roast.
Yeah, I did a lot of banquets. Half of what I did were banquets. The other half were theaters open to the public. They came in to see me. They bought a ticket, and they knew what to expect. But these are trade associations. These are chambers of commerce. These are the National Association of Wicker Furniture Manufacturers and Ball Bearing Manufacturers. It's a tough audience because you're not just going on immediately, you're following the awards, the golf awards, the retirement speeches. I actually saw a man break down in tears because when George H.W. Bush criticized broccoli, he said he didn't like broccoli, and I'm not making this up. And by the way, I hate people who say I'm not making this up because they usually are.
Yeah, right.
Or when they say long story short, and then they talk for an hour. But anyway, so these were the Fruits and Vegetable Trade Association, and this company, Birdseye or something, had come out with broccoli. It's a little broccoli, and it's prepackaged, and it's broccoli. And so this man, he was retiring, so he was kind of emotional anyway, and he says, the broccoli sales are down and because of George H.W. Bush. And so what they did, though, to their credit, they sent 6 months' supply of broccoli to the White House at that time. So you follow all of these things, and the sad story. This Capitol Steps have a list of requirements, and I looked at it once, and I thought, why didn't I think of that? One of them is they don't let us follow anything sad, and so often we'll have a moment of silence for the members of our association who passed away this year, and now here's Mark Russell. And another one they had is, don't introduce us until you know we're ready. Now you'd think they know. One time they said you go on at 9 o'clock, and all right, thank you. And I'm on the 20th floor of this hotel in Seattle, and so 20 to 9 the phone rings. That's why I'm getting ready to go down there anyway. So 20 to 9 the phone rings. Mr. Russell, yeah, you're on. And they had already introduced me, right? I'm 20 floors up there, and here he is. And I'm 20 floors up. Wow. So I run to the elevator, and it was one of those nights, one of those times we've always done, there were some children, and they had pressed every button. So awful situations, and well, you know, I got those jobs because I was safe. Now that's not good today. The whole theme of this week is taking chances. Push the envelope. Push the envelope. I always pulled the envelope. Lewis Black, I told him, I said, I tried anger. It came out perturbed. But I was safe. I was safe on PBS. PBS, you had to be bipartisan. We're supported by the federal government. No. I made the mistake. Tom Lehrer once said, you never, ever say, on the other hand. Mm-hmm. That is a wimpy, cop-out, safe thing to do. But I had to do that. On the other hand, I don't know what the hell I do today. I mean, what am I? Balance you-know-who out with Nancy Pelosi? I mean, I don't like Nancy Pelosi either, but I don't have an hour and a half of her. I haven't written 8 Nancy Pelosi. If I was working tonight, right? I'm working tonight. And I say, when Richard Nixon had been president for 7 months, nobody was talking about impeachment. When Ronald Reagan was president for 7 months, his approval rating was much higher than 39%. When Charles Manson was 7 months old, a grand jury was not investigating him.
Yeah, right.
Now see, I just tried that out on you. So if I was performing tonight, I wouldn't do it.
Now, you said something to me about when you go on, this is a Capitol Steps requirement as well, doing a roast.
Yes.
And where you appear, because a roast usually has multiple people, that are roasting. They're the roasters, and then the roastee.
That's right. I think the roast, the whole idea of it has really run its course. In fact, you don't see many of them anymore, the Dean Martin roast and all of that, because it reached the point where I would get a call from somebody, and they'd say, could you help us out? We want to roast our pastor. You know, stuff like that. And so when you're doing a roast, you really want to go on first, because if there's a hot topic going on in the news, something that happened that day, everybody on that panel is going to have something to say about it. And so you want to go first. There's an old saying in the biz that with those fryer roasts, which got to be quite ribald, or bawdy, the first one who says "Bup, bup, 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 bup," gets all the laughs. And so I'm glad they don't do roasts anymore.
Well, you said, to use the example, you said if the guy is bald,
If you what?
if the guy is bald,
Oh, that's right.
you
yes.
remember that?
Yeah.
That you want to
Yeah.
be, you want to do the first bald joke.
Well, we know this guy in Washington, and he's prominently known for his toupees, and so they're roasting him, and they told me, so well, you're going to go on late. I said, no, I'm going on first. So this guy is involved in sports and everything. He's a PR guy, very popular guy with this crazy toupee, and his name is Charlie Brotman. And we were talking about the old RFK Stadium, and I said, the RFK Stadium now, that is not AstroTurf, that is real grass. The only AstroTurf at RFK Stadium is on Charlie Brotman's head. So if I had been laid around in that program, it would, everybody.
All the bald jokes would have been over with. It would have been kind of a
That's
passe
right.
then at that particular time.
Thank you, by the way.
For reminding you of that, yes. Okay, yeah. When you have to do a performance, do you woodshed? Do you go undercover for a period of time? How long does it take you to prepare something?
I'm in deep meditation in a cave for about 2 weeks. I call it, my wife and I call it nether, and it's very annoying to her because I'm not talking, and that's just the way it is. Help me out again.
Okay. Well,
I'm an older person.
yeah.
When Trump. No, go ahead.
No, yeah. See, the very first thing, I've seen this fellow being a Washingtonian for 40 years, okay? And I've always felt that I never really knew what side of the fence he was on politically, because he kept it, kind of evened up. But you said something interesting I said, how would you do it now? And you alluded to it a few moments ago, but it would be impossible for you not to devote a major portion of your act now to something about Trump, correct?
That's right.
Thank you. And
Well, like I said, I could not balance it.
right.
I could not balance it. I do like to be topical. For again, if I was working tonight in the area, I'd say the National Comedy Center in Jamestown was paid a visit recently by that renowned wit, Andrew Cuomo. Or Chuckles Cuomo, as he's known in the business. His father, Mario Checky Cuomo, toyed with running for president some years ago. And it was evident that he would not do well in the South when somebody down there said, well, ain't many guys named Mario here in Alabama. Well, Mario Cuomo took it awfully bad. He was offended, and it was awful. What he should have said, that's true, but there aren't many Billy Bobs in Brooklyn either.
All right.
I don't know if I'd use
Mario Cuomo visited the National Italian American Foundation. He was the guest speaker. And you have to understand this, I happen to be Italian American, so I can speak like this. When we start at 6:30 for cocktails, at 11:15 he comes on to speak. So he gets up there and he says, "Now I know why this is an annual dinner. Because it goes from year to year," he said.
All right.
And then he spoke for 45 minutes, and as you know, if you ever heard him speak, he's a compelling speaker. I mean, whatever your politics
Yes.
are, the guy was a brilliant speaker.
The keynote of the
Yeah, I mean, it was
84
brilliant,
convention.
absolutely brilliant. Any comments?
Yeah. Well, they talked this week about these stereotypes, Irish drunks and then Italian gangsters and so forth. The shortest joke in the world, shortest joke in the world. 2 Irishmen walk out of a bar. It could happen. Why don't Italians like Jehovah's Witnesses?
No idea.
Italians don't like any witness.
Right.
Now, I wanted to talk to the rabbi yesterday. In fact, I was kind of wondering if he was going to tell this joke. And he didn't tell it. And maybe somebody in here can explain to me why this is funny, because when I tell it to Jewish people, they always laugh. I don't know if I get it or not. And 2 Arabs go into a Jewish delicatessen in Beverly Hills, and they sit down and they order corned beef sandwich on rye. And the waiter goes over and the counterman says, "Are those for those Arabs over there?" And they had the whole regalia they had to wear. And they said, "Yeah." Well, he said, "Well, charge them $100 a piece for the sandwiches and get them the hell out of here," right? Next day, 4 Arabs come in, they sit down, they order the corned beef on rye, and the counterman said, "Charge them $200 for the sandwiches." And the next day, 6 Arabs come in, they charge them $500 for the next day. 8 Arabs come in, and the door is locked. And there's a sign on the window, "No Jews allowed."
This is your game, but I had a great one about in Soviet Union. There was a sign up on the wall that said "Meet today," so people started queuing up at dawn to get the meat. Finally, the Russian comes out, and he says, "I'm sorry to say that the meat has been delayed, but all Jews out of the line." Okay, so these people have been waiting a long time. The meat, it doesn't come in until 6 o'clock at night, and they then disperse the crowd because the meat isn't there. And there was murmuring among the people remaining, said, "Those Jews get all the breaks, don't they?"
Well, David Steinberg, he was talking about pushing the envelope the other day,
Yeah.
and he pushed it himself, and it kind of backfired, because the whole idea of pushing the envelope, and it better be funny. Even if some people think that's in horrible taste, if it gets a laugh, it works. Well, now this was not a show of his. I mean, we're analyzing comedy all over the place this week, and he had a reference to Reformed temples, and some of them are so Reformed they're Nazis. See, in other words, it's the ultimate opposite, the ultimate way over here. The Reformed, and boom, 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 Nazis didn't work, backfired on them.
Right.
Woody Allen had a better version of the same reference. He said he knew of a temple that was so Reformed, every Yom Kippur they held a fashion show. A little bit better.
I thought the best line he had was where he did this Moses thing.
The what?
The Moses,
Yeah.
his Moses, improvisation, and where Moses takes his shoes off, he goes near the burning bush, and he says,
Oh, yeah.
and that was the first time in the Bible we heard the name Christ. Very funny.
Well, the other version of that, a Unitarian. The only time a Unitarian church hears the word Jesus Christ is when the janitor falls down the stairs.
We're getting to the Q&A portion soon, but I wanted to end this, and we could go talk for 2 hours here about it stuff. You had said something to me about you have told jokes where you said the language, but then you amended the language slightly, and it made the joke better.
Oh, yeah. I had this line about Pearl Harbor. That's right. I remember Pearl Harbor, but I don't remember what she did. See? Now, for a couple of years, I don't know, I made it a little too complicated. And this is where you get down to the minutia of comedy. Not only words, but syllables. Syllables, when these writers are crafting this stuff. And I said, I remember Pearl Harbor, but I don't remember what it was she did. Now, I did that for a couple of years. It got a laugh, yes. But then I thought, well, just speak plain language. I don't remember what she did. The laugh was twice as loud. And I look back at that, well, what was I trying to do? I'm an American to speak like, what am I, a Brit? I don't remember what it was. That's it there.
Yeah.
That's the way British people talk.
You also mentioned something about, and you can explain this because I can't, you explained it to me, but I didn't get it, about shared assumptions.
Well, yeah, that's one of the...
That's a technique we're talking about.
That's one of the answers. I read this someplace. This isn't mine. Why do people laugh? And we talked about that all week long. And shared assumptions means that the comedian brought something from your subconscious to the surface. And you agreed with the premise of the joke, and you're surprised, and that surprise results in laughter. Mm-hmm. That's more or less what that means.
Do you have an example of that?
No.
Good. We are stretching. You only have
Will Rogers said, a famous quote of Will Rogers, he said his favorite jokes are not the ones that get the biggest laughs. His favorite jokes are the ones where the guy in the audience kind of nudges the guy next to him and says, you know, he's right about that. Now, the problem is, once in a while you read an obituary of somebody, he had a warm sense of humor. He had a dry sense of humor. You don't hear of anybody having a wet sense of humor. If you do an hour of warm, you're going to have an hour of silence, you know, when all you have is, well, you know, and you never read a review. Wow, he kept that audience smiling for an hour.
Right.
It doesn't, no, you want wet humor. You want milk coming out of your nose.
Now, this is a glass of water, which is not for drinking.
No, well,
it's a prop.
I didn't drink any of it because they were good. They're a good audience. They really are.
So what would happen? When would you drink the water?
I would drink the water when I'm bombing. And there's no laughs. And you get a dryness in the throat. I'm telling you, it's 10 bales of cotton. It's Russian Cossacks marching through your mouth. But if you watch if you watch an HBO special, there's the water there. There's a bottle of water. When does the comic drink the water? They drink the water during the laughter. And so there's sound going on. But when you're bombing, there's no laughter. And so you're drinking that water during the dead air. Wow. And it doesn't help. It could be brimstone in there.
Yeah. Now, you said, we've heard on the stage here, that you do stand-up, and you're constantly getting feedback for what works and what doesn't work and how you amend the act to change it so it's funnier.
Yeah.
It is, and all of them said, it's like, I mean, Black said it, that it's like literally dying up there. I mean, you could be dying. And
Yeah.
I mean, literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have the thing, expression, well, actually, my wife called it Dr. Comedy. Dr. Comedy. You could have the flu. I've worked with the flu. I have worked with, the day my father died, I worked that night, you know, and stuff like that. You may have to go to the bathroom, but you're on all of a sudden, and you're out there for 90 minutes, and you have no sense of having to go to the bathroom until you get off, and then you have to go. A couple of times during the show, yes, but you know. But yeah, the now we were on my wife and I took a cross country motor trip about 5 years ago. We went to 23 states, 2 months, 8,000 miles, and every town on that trip, I remembered the shows that did not work. And every comedian can do that. It's the equivalent of Ted Williams referring to a particular home run 40 years earlier. Yeah, it was low and inside.
Right.
And so I remember these towns where it didn't work. Years later, 40 years later.
We have taken care of the expository portion of our show.
You can't use that word.
I didn't say suppository. Okay, just okay. And we're going to do some Q&A, and we're going to have you come up to this position. Yeah, where the microphone was, and we're in trouble here because either you have to talk loud so we can entertain the questions. Remember that we're taping this, and you're going to be on camera. All of you have to sign releases before you leave, okay? Yeah, and give all of your residual payments to us for being here. So, okay, so if you want to come up here and ask a question, do so.
Are we going to the suppository part of the show?
Yes. Everybody's a comedian, you know? Okay. You have to stand here. The camera's there, okay? Turn it around.
Okay, now I'm really nervous.
Yeah.
So I think that the comedians are performing a really important role now. People like Stephen Colbert and everything in holding, truth to power. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they all tried to make the point that all they cared about was the laughs, not changing the world, and loftier points like truth to power, and that is true. But maybe in their subconscious they might think, well, I'm making a difference. The old theory was that if a public figure, if a politician winds up in a late night monologue, he's finished. Now that doesn't follow. I mean, Trump was just every monologue. It might be like the day he resigned is the way I felt when Nixon resigned. I said, my God, I have to go back to writing my own material. But not just president. I mean, if a cabinet member, this is weird. Today, everybody knows who press secretaries are,
right,
and who the secretaries of education are. But if somebody a little lower on the ladder winds up in a monologue, Scaramucci, for heaven's sakes, they're done for. That's almost like an exact science. But the bottom line is get that laugh. We are addicted when we're children. We're addicted. That first laugh when you're 9. It's always 9. I don't know. It's never 8. It's never 10. It's always 9.
Yeah.
That is that hit of heroin in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
Not to be grim about this, but it's that addictive. I said, wow.
But you have to be funny first.
Yeah, well, that's it. You got that laugh. And in my case, I used to do pratfalls. When I got up to get my 8th grade diploma, I tripped on purpose. I knew how to do that. Later, when I started drinking,
You know how to do that too.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Next question.
Sarah Silverman, comedian. She said that she would never make fun of heavy women. She said that was a topic that she would never touch. And I was wondering what your feelings were about, are there topics that you think should never be touched, or are there topics you wouldn't touch? Is there stuff that makes you uncomfortable? There's stuff that makes me uncomfortable. I was wondering what made you uncomfortable.
well, the answer now is there's nothing that you'd leave out. Nothing is taboo in this climate. My wife did a fat joke, unquote, when she said Raisa Gorbachev was the first wife of a Russian leader to weigh less than he did. Now, you could say years ago, I'd say, well, abortion, no, the abortion, and then I was doing I used to speak to right to life groups, and I'd say people pro-abortion are people who've already been born. And I did that on television, and Ronald Reagan used the line in his first inaugural without attribution, by the way. But again, it's a politician, Senator, are you pro-life? Sure am. What about pro-choice? You bet. But everything now, it's just so wild.
Yeah.
Any topic at all.
Yep.
Fair game.
Thank you for so many years of political comedy. My question is, have any presidents sent you messages, either positive or negative, about what you've said about them?
Unfortunately not. You'd really want to be chastised by a politician. It would be my fee would double, for example. And but no, they're just the opposite. They just especially when there's people around. Well, we need this guy to keep us straightened out. And there was I did a show when they opened the Gerald Ford Library in Grand Rapids. This was an HBO special, and so Ronald Reagan was president, and he's in the audience, and everybody's taking shots at him, including me. And when the show aired, it showed him laughing at things that he really didn't laugh at, because they had one camera on him, and with the editing, they could just show him laughing at everything. So they all presidents, if they didn't have a sense of humor, they wouldn't have made it be on the city council or wherever they came from, or the state senate. But no, you'd love to get them. I got a letter from George McGovern one time, and I was talking about the people who is the average McGovern delegate. And I put a stream of, they're all gay, lesbian, albino, Czechoslovakian, they got all these things. And he wrote back and he says, yeah, but at least they're not in jail. He was that's the only letter I ever got.
Hi.
It's
Is
not
it
attacking
working?
you.
Yes, it's
No.
working. One of my favorite comedians when I was a kid was Victor Borge. I loved him, and I'm interested when you melded comedy with songs, how early that was. Was that something you did when you were a kid? When did that develop, and how?
Well, it was a combination with Tom Lehrer, obviously, with those friends. But Borge, real early. I mean, I was about 6 or 7, and my uncle had this record, and enormous. I had lunch with him one time, and he was a refugee. He was a Jewish refugee who got out of Europe, worked in a gas station in Los Angeles, couldn't speak English. He developed that phonetic language thing as part of his process of learning English. And then he was hired by Rudy Valley, who was a big deal at the time, to do the audience warm-up. But he was getting so many laughs that Rudy Valley, a scoundrel that he was not a nice person, and he wouldn't let him on the show because he was getting some big laughs. So who bought out the contract? Who rescued Victor Borge? Who gave him his start? Bing Crosby. Yep. And so he was, he would say, well, I have 3 grandchildren. I can't remember their names, but they never come and I call them anyway, He played the amphitheater years ago, and there was a bird kept flying down, and it was very distracting. That happens in the amphitheater, and it's flying down. He doesn't acknowledge it at all. He doesn't stop, and the bird is really, people are giggling, and then the bird disappears, and then finally, half an hour later, Borge ends the show, walks off stage, and goes,
Okay. Who's asking questions? Just you, Bill? Okay. One last question, then we have to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Over the decades, what adjustments have you made in your act as you've changed with the times? What changes have you had to make over the decades, and why?
well, I took every bit of criticism personally. I really did. I tried to be a little, I thought, well, I can get away with this. Be more edgy, and I hate that expression. But I thought, why am I so uptight? Why did it, was it so nailed into me that I had to be 50-50 complete, 50-50? And so I didn't get ridiculous about it. I didn't swear. I used one F-bomb, filibuster. But that was it. Because, comedians would say, well, the first time I ever had to look up the word anachronistic, it was applied to me. And so anachronistic means, silly old fart. And so that was it. I just tried to relax a little bit more and be a little bit more honest. And so I think I achieved that, but it's too late because
Before we leave, we were going to get Mark as a little present a knockoff Rolex watch, but instead we're giving him this tush seat. Okay, this is yours.
Thank you. Listen. Oh, that's very nice. Listen, please help me in thanking Paul Anthony for making it possible for me to do something this week. And also, let me leave you with the way I would end many shows over the years. You've been a wonderful audience, and I leave you with the exact words that members of Congress say to each other every Wednesday. Have a nice weekend.
Great, Mark. Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Where is this being taped for?
It's a private thing.